Hello there. This is the Ctrl Over C podcast. My name is SalsaShark, or for all intents and purposes, you can call me Salsa.
And I am Ike Isaacs. You can just call me Ike.
Now that you know who we are, we're going to do a quick explanation of what we're doing here, what we're aiming for. And this
That's
is
right.
a podcast not just about gaming, but gaming culture. You know, what's new, what's old, our favorites, nostalgia. Hopefully, at some points, we have enough budget to actually bring in someone reputable.
Or as reputable as you can get on YouTube, I guess.
Yeah, so right now we are operating on less than a shoestring budget. And by shoestring budget, I mean the cost of an RC Cola.
What is the cost of an RC Cola? I mean, you can get like a 12-pack from Kroger for like a couple bucks, I guess. I don't know.
I'll be honest, I have not seen an RC Cola in person in at least a decade.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, I've drank an RC Cola. I used to work for 7-Up, so I've had it, but I've never seen it like out of a machine or anything.
Wait, are you saying RC Cola is made by 7-Up?
Yeah, it's a 7-Up product.
All right, I'll put that on the list of things I did not know. I just assumed it was an off-brand.
No, RC Cola is like a legit brand, dude. It's a 7-Up brand. 7-Up also makes such products. Well, at least they disperse or dispense them. They make good stuff like your Arizona teas and your Snapples. Really good stuff, man.
I mean, arguably, I'm not even going to go into my dislike for Arizona tea or Snapple, but let's move past that and on to, what we're talking about today.
That's right. So for people who may not know, just a kind of a brief description, and this is the name was actually Salsa's idea, but Control Over C is actually something that's more akin to the PC folk as to which one is a better crouch button, Control or the C button. And I guess that would be probably our first topic is, in my opinion, Control is a much better crouch button.
It makes sense because your pinky is never used for anything but, the control button.
Exactly.
Or shift if you like to do the shift walk, but...
Right.
I mean, when you have the option of crouch, why bother walking?
That's exactly right. You're a smaller target, and you move just as slow. Honestly, it reminds me of back in the old days of Counter-Strike. The old shift walk or the crouch walk. I mean,
Right.
why would you shift walk? Just crouch walk.
Now, mind you, Counter-Strike, Source, not 1.6. We're not quite that old.
No, I've played 1.6, and it is the equivalent to Pong in comparison to like Mario Tennis.
Like, don't get me wrong. Playing it, I have respect in the sense that I have respect for my elders. But
right.
I don't play it expecting to be blown away by the magnificent 2003 graphics.
The less than 240p resolution.
We're talking pixels the size of Twinkies.
Seriously, though, dude, it is rough. But I guess outside of your dislike for Snapple and your preference of Control Over C, as we have said, let's kind of go into who we are, because obviously this is going to be a gaming podcast, and as Salsa very prominently said, we're not just going to be here spewing junk about the latest things in gaming. We're just going to be talking about what we want to talk about when it comes to video games. But Salsa, I guess, tell them a little bit about who you are.
All right. Well, I guess I'll start with the name SalsaShark. Goes back to, if you don't already know, cult classic movie, Clerks. Beautiful black and white movie, not from the black and white period of movies, so... But...
It was stylistically done in black and white, more because Kevin Smith had no money, but regardless.
Yeah, honestly, dude was so broke he couldn't even afford color. So,
Right.
but the reason I picked up the name SalsaShark is because when I was younger, someone I knew. Let's just say that. Don't want to get too into the details because I don't want people to actually know who I am.
Right.
I'm just a voice. I say stupid things. I have hot takes. That's all you need to know. But someone I used to know used the name SalsaShark as a username for every game they ever played. Mostly Counter-Strike. That was pretty much the only game they played.
Right.
And since then, he's fallen off the radar for reasons we will not discuss. But I've taken over the name, and I guess what else can I really say about myself that isn't already apparent?
Right. That's what I was going to say. I mean, it was a legacy in of itself that you continued. So kind of to follow up on that, obviously, everybody has already kind of seen me from the first video. So generally speaking, you kind of already know who I am. But I go by Ike. My name is Isaac, but I go by Ike. That's my preference. And I like all things pop culture. Kind of like how Salsa mentioned. I've always been called Ike my entire life as a nickname, and that's kind of the moniker that I prefer. But yeah, we love video games. I love video games. But yeah, other than that, I mean, what else is there to say?
We're just a couple of dude bros playing the games and doing the gamer things.
That's right. So one other important, I guess, aspect of having a gaming podcast is to, I guess, say what our favorite games are. So we're going to kind of go through a 3-step process. We're going to start with when we were younger, kind of like our I guess with gaming, here's what I'm going to say is that you have games that you play when you're younger that even if they're not that good, they're always kind of those games that you can always kind of harken back to. You can kind of always go back to them and say, this was fun. But then you have those games that really developed your taste. Typically, these are the games that you played when you were a teenager. And then you have the games that we play now because now that we're adults, our available time for gaming sometimes goes down. In Logan's case, maybe not so much, but
Listen, if I want to live off the government cheddar and just play games all day, that is my choice.
that is fair, man. If you want, honestly, take the government's money, but
I will suckle on that government teat just so I can stay home and play COD Warzone.
That's right. God, don't even say that.
Yeah, I'm just playing. I don't actually play Warzone. Don't mistake me for one of those people.
But Salsa, tell us, kind of walk us through that. What was your first games that you really got into? What were the games that really developed your taste, and then what are you into now?
It's an interesting process, an interesting growth, because as far back as my memory can go, which is not that far ago, I don't have a good memory, but I remember playing Super Mario World on the NES or the Super NES?
World would be 64, I believe. I don't think there was a
think you're a little off on that.
Was there a World on NES or SNES?
Yeah, Super Mario World. That was.
Oh, World. I thought you said Party. I'm sorry. I'm stupid. No, you're right. That was probably
God,
the.
How milquetoast would I have to be to think that Super Mario Party was a defining game in my life? It's a party game.
You're right. You're right. But no,
Not
go
to
ahead.
mention, you
I'm
have to have
stupid.
friends to play Super Mario Party.
That is also very true, and something we'll learn about Salsa here is that he's a forever alone. If you remember the old meme days.
Oh, don't bring us back to that.
That
No.
was something.
I remember that, some really dumb parachute game, also on the Super NES.
Right.
And then I don't think gaming really became as big as it did for us, or me in particular, until we reached the Nintendo 64. It was Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda. Funny enough, Majora's Mask was the first one I remember, not Ocarina of Time.
No, yeah, I would agree with that statement.
And I mean, as a kid, never beat it. Never once. In fact, to this day, I don't think I've beat Majora's Mask because I've got things going on. I don't have time to go back and play a 20-year-old game now?
I mean, I would say it's worth a play, but we can get into that in a little bit.
Yeah, we'll discuss that later. But those were some of the earliest games that really turned me on to gaming. But one of the most pivotal, well, there are two pivotal moments in gaming for me. The first being experiencing Resident Evil 1 director's cuts as a kid. The first time seeing that decrepit, scrawny zombie turn around in like 240p.
But it was the scariest, pixels that you ever saw.
Oh yeah, I mean literally, I never beat the game back then. I wouldn't even play past that point. I got too scared. I had to have a babysitter play it for me so I could watch. And even then,
Yeah.
I don't think she beat it.
So for those who don't know, me and Salsa, we go way back. I mean, way, way, way back. So I remember him telling me about him trying to play this game, which then led me to try to play the game. And I had a similar issue as well, that it wasn't that it was so, I mean, I don't want to say it was frightening, but especially for a young mind, that was horrifying.
I mean, even just the scene where you walk through the hallway and the dogs come bursting through the windows.
Yeah.
That's a lot for a little kid's heart to take. But, to this day, I still have a thing for Resident Evil. I've stuck around, I've played all the mainline entries. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I've played tons of the offshoots, like Outbreak 1 and 2. Operation Raccoon City, which, horrible game if you look at it as a Resident Evil game. And some might argue it was even a horrible game just as a video game. But it still holds a special slot in my heart. Because back then, nothing was cooler than playing as Hunk and having that cool gas mask. So a whole game where you just get to run around in black trench coats wearing gas masks, spot on.
No, absolutely.
And then there's obviously one other game which I would say was really pivotal to my development and how I landed on even the console wars, which was Halo. Now, I didn't find out about Halo as a video game when it came out. I found out about it around the time 2 had been out for a year, I believe. And I think it was my father had a burnt disc. And on it were just... It was a collage of things. I remember looking at the disc, and in black marker he had written Microsoft Office 2000 whatever, Max Payne 1 and 2, a couple other random things, and then at the bottom, Halo. And at the time I was like, oh, it's probably just some dumb software, or I don't know. But I booted it up thinking, at the very least it'll be interesting to find out what it is. Best game I had ever played. I remember in one night I beat almost all of the game until I got to the flood section of the game. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh yeah, of course.
And ironically, it was also a horrifying moment for a child.
Oh yeah.
Plunged into the darkness.
The flood are terrifying. They're still terrifying. I mean,
like, I see why they took them out of future games, because honestly, that shit scares.
It is horrifying. They're like parasite zombies.
It wasn't even what they were that scared me. It was the overwhelming number. How they would spawn, they would die, and then they would just resurrect right in front of you.
Yep.
That, and it forced you to use the worst gun in the game, the shotgun. And I know the shotgun is supposed to be the best Halo gun ever, outside of the Halo 1 pistol, which is a sniper, but handheld. But,
Gives a
God,
whole new meaning to Magnum.
bro, you could shoot you could destroy a tank with probably a clip and a half of that thing. But, yes, that's how I got introduced to Halo, which ended up being one of my favorite game series of all time. I played Halo 1, most of Halo 2. I'm still working on that because I never actually had the chance to buy it until they remade it in the Master Chief Collection.
Right.
But I played Halo 3, Halo 4, Halo 5, Halo Reach, ODST. And I could say which ones were good and which weren't. You know, I don't want to be mean, but ooh, there's a reason people remember Bungie so fondly.
And why they are sorely disappointed with the products of Microsoft.
And the thing is, if Microsoft just took like 10 seconds and listened to what the fans were saying, it wouldn't be hard to make a good Halo game. I mean, like right now, we'll talk about it later, you know, Halo Infinite. But really high hopes, but it's made by 343, so kind of got to rein those hopes in.
Yeah.
But I think that's about it in terms of where I started and where I am. Well, I guess I should also add that outside of where I started, where I am now, really digging Assassin's Creed, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I'll say I played a little bit of the first one, didn't like how it controlled, but other than that, I've played through all of the mainline entries now.
And of course, you have Valhalla coming out, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but we have
Yeah.
Valhalla coming out, which looks promising as well.
I mean, there's a whole bit to talk about there with my feelings towards Valhalla.
But I guess for my origin story in a way, I guess to start with, like kind of like you know how Salsa mentioned, we all kind of remember, I guess in a way, playing some kind of Mario game when we were younger. You know, I remember that, and I remember Donkey Kong Country for the NES, or the Super Nintendo, I should say. But I also remember, you know, and more a little bit later, I remember getting really into like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and not because I skated. I've never skated in my life. I
Yeah,
have I have neither the dexterity or the physical prowess in order to skateboard. But the Tony Hawk,
that's a really eloquent way to say you did not want broken bones at the age of 10.
essentially, yes. I don't have the tenacity that Tony Hawk does. But you know, otherwise, I really like them. Part of it, I think, too, is because this, and this is going to sound silly, but it also kind of developed my taste in music playing those Tony Hawk games. You know what I mean?
Of course, you know, what was that one song? Superman by Goldfinger?
Yeah.
Absolute banger. I mean, not many people know this, but they also did a really good cover of that, I forget what country it came from, but the song 99 Luftballons.
Oh yeah. Well, it's 99 red balloons in the English, isn't it?
Yeah. I want to say it was German. Luftballon sounds German.
That does sound German. But kind of how he said, I mean, there are all these really good songs, and that drew me to it. But also the fact that the game itself was fun. It was pretty intuitive for a skating game in the '90s. But
I
in
don't know if I would
addition,
say intuitive. I would say it was simple. Because intuitive was like Skate. Skate was a really intuitive game.
I guess I should say intuitive on a more basic level. It didn't take much to pick up the game and go. But of course, my tastes evolved over time. I remember playing the original Call of Duty Finest Hour on the PlayStation 2, which eventually led me to play other Call of Duty games. And honestly, I think during my teen years, I really got into shooting games. And I don't want to say Call of Duty specifically, because obviously a lot of people have different opinions about Call of Duty. But I think that almost everybody can agree that Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is probably one of the pinnacles of modern gaming just across the board.
See, I want to interject right here and just say there's this weird, I don't know what it is, but everywhere I look, you see these kids talking about how the pinnacle of Call of Duty was 4 games. And they always list Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3.
See, I wouldn't agree with that statement.
Yeah.
I would include Modern Warfare 2, but I think that I would say Modern Warfare 1, 2, World at War, and Black Ops, in my opinion.
See, that's what I'm thinking. And I think it has to do with a generational thing because we grew up with those titles.
Right.
And then the people who are saying, Black Ops 2, Black Ops 3, Modern Warfare 3, they were kind of growing up on the tail end of those years.
Right.
Because I'm going to be real. Modern Warfare 3 was horrible.
It was horrible because the story was good, but they did a 180 from what they were doing in Modern Warfare 2 multiplayer wise.
And one thing was, it was literally just Modern Warfare 2 with a couple changes, and then they just took the color palette and toned it down to gray.
Right. I would say also that they really took out a lot of key elements from the multiplayer that you enjoyed, and also in addition to that, I would also say before we get too far, because we can revisit Call of Duty.
That's a whole nother topic.
But I would also say that another tentative game in my growth as a gamer was Counter-Strike Source. I probably logged 300-400 hours on Counter-Strike Source. I mean, an obnoxious
amount of hours.
I would honestly, if I had the ability, because I don't currently have a PC, I have an Xbox and I have a PlayStation 4 as well. But that kind of even bleeds into my next, where I am now. But also during my younger years, tentative years, I had the Resident Evil franchise. And I would say even now, I'm still a huge fan of the Resident Evil games. I'm very much looking forward to Resident Evil 8. I'm very curious how they're going to evolve the story. But in addition to that, I'm also recently, I've been playing a crap ton of Horizon Zero Dawn. And if you've never played Horizon Zero Dawn, it is like a legitimately fun game that I had never heard of. Me and Salsa were even talking about this before the podcast, but we both, were talking about how the Horizon Zero Dawn was supposed to be like, a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Like, oh, let's play PlayStation 4, let's play this game. But then it kind of went under the radar. And then I literally bought a PlayStation 4 last year on a Black Friday deal. And it came with 3 free games. It came with The Last of Us Remastered, great game. Came with God of War, a great game. And it came with Horizon Zero Dawn. And I had no idea what it was. I booted it up, and I was like, holy hell, this is actually like a really fun game. How have I never heard of this before? So that's kind of where I am now. But otherwise, it's rocking and rolling, dude. Rocking and rolling. As far as gaming goes, I should say.
See, I kind of want to play Horizon Zero Dawn because, like you said, when it was first announced, it kind of flew under the radar because of other titles, People were waiting for Cyberpunk 2077 and The Last of Us 2, which is a whole thing I'm not going to get into. And it kind of felt like not many people cared about Horizon Zero Dawn. In fact, I even remember thinking, looking at it, for some reason I always thought of that stupid Hyperpunk Overdrive or whatever it was for Xbox. It was like a throwaway game, just meant to fill out a roster of original first-party IPs that are console exclusive. But, time went on, no one really talked about it. But it seems like in the last few months, everywhere I look, people are going on about how great that game is. Even like people on Twitter, the people I follow, are going on about how, oh yeah, it's got flaws, the UI is a little wonky, but the game being almost flawless otherwise. Not flawless, because an impossible game, it's impossible to have a perfect game. But otherwise, pretty damn good.
No, yeah, and I would agree with that statement. And I think part of it too is that they recently had a PC release of Horizon Zero Dawn, so you can actually play it on computer now.
I do not think my PC would be able to handle that. That is a lot of polygons.
It really is. It's an intense game, but so we've kind of introduced ourselves. We've kind of gone over our favorite game series that were kind of tentative and important to our current status of being gamers. But I think now, I mean, we want to kind of talk about some more current events. But for anybody who's been living under a rock, there's currently a pandemic outside, and one of the products of the pandemic have been delays, cancellations, and things of that nature. I'm a huge movie buff, and like every single movie that I've been looking forward to has been delayed, has been postponed, and only a small few have been released digitally for people to enjoy. And the same goes for video games. I know recently Cyberpunk got delayed, of course.
Well, hold on now. Let's be fair. Cyberpunk was not delayed inherently because of the pandemic. Cyberpunk's been delayed like a dozen times now just because it's not polished enough. It's not quite right. We don't have the shooting mechanics down. We don't have the individualized phalluses perfectly rendered.
We don't have perfect bushes yet.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong. I support any gamer or any game company to go out of their way to put the extra effort in, even if it means delaying a game a few months, even a year. Because nowadays there's so many games coming out that are incomplete, have to be patched day 1, day 2, day 3. So it's good to see someone put the care and effort into a game it deserves.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember kind of same subject as I remember when they released Call of Duty Modern Warfare. That game, I mean, the story mode was good, it was solid, but you got into the multiplayer, and the multiplayer was like a glitch trap, and then Modern Warfare then drops 15, 30 gigabyte updates to the game, and now my PlayStation is now no longer a PlayStation. It's just a vessel for Modern Warfare. That's all it is.
Oh, you're talking about the new Modern Warfare.
Yeah, the new Modern Warfare, the recent one that they put out.
And I was going to say, you're saying like 30 gig updates, and I was like, I don't even think the original Modern Warfare was like 3 gigs altogether.
I was going to say the original Modern Warfare wasn't, but the new Modern Warfare is. Like, just if you buy the digital copy of that, you basically need to have its own devoted hard drive.
I mean, on one hand, I'm loving the resolution. I can literally see the sweat pores on someone's face. On the other hand, I'm pushing supercomputer levels of data storage over here just so I can play a single game.
Right. But, and like you said, though, kind of go back to Cyberpunk, I'm excited that they're, actually polishing the game. They're not pulling a Fallout 76 and releasing, 15% of a game and then trying to, and don't even get me started on all the crap that they did, all the, literal highway robbery that they did. They were talking about giving burlap sacks with the title on it, and they send out those, 5-cent, Chinese drawstring bags.
15% is very generous.
It really is. For Fallout 76, we should probably go with more like 5% of the game.
Like, there's a really good video on YouTube that was put out not even a month after the game came out. Just like a 3-hour video of all the glitches this guy experienced in the first week playing the game.
Like, don't get us wrong. We are understanding. We get that there's going to be some, growing pains with any video game.
Well, but that's the thing, though. It's understandable to have growing pains and a few bugs and glitches here and there.
But if the game itself is a growing pain...
Yeah. We're talking about a company, Bethesda, who is known for their infinite amount of bugs and glitches in every game. Like, literally. I've heard stories of people, like, modding Skyrim, and they'll get this infinite error where all it is the mod they installed relabeled a dirt texture, and that causes the game to infinitely crash. That's how broken that game is.
Right. And
so I expected Fallout 76 to be the way it is.
You're like, this was an anticipated error.
Especially when they're like, oh, we're going to make a open world RPG multiplayer Fallout. But here's the catch. We're using the Fallout 4 engine.
Which, well, first of all, Fallout 4 was not that great.
I mean, I like it as a game, but that's like trying to change a flat tire while you're driving. You're just trying to patchwork into a whole-ass multiplayer, into an engine that is not at all designed or able to handle such a monumental task.
It's like trying to do surgery with thread and needle. It's not going to work.
But I gotta say, in the words of God Emperor Todd Howard himself, it just works.
It just works. So that kind of leads into our next topic. Salsa even kind of mentioned previously about Halo Infinite. Obviously we hope Cyberpunk, gets its release date soon, and hopefully the wait was worth it. But I guess the same could be said for the new Halo game, and Salsa's got some feelings about that. So enlighten us on the words and the wonderful brilliance that is Halo Infinite.
So I'm gonna come out right forefront of this whole conversation, and I'll admit, I am biased. I love Halo. Master Chief is best waifu. But as everyone knows, just, through the Vine branch, Halo has not been the same since Bungie contractually handed over the title to fucking Microsoft. And now they had two chances so far, Halo 4 and Halo 5. Both flopped, but for different reasons. So here is a brand new chance, and they promised it was going to be just like the old Halo. It's going to capture that same vibe.
Right.
And I know everyone likes to joke about the the trailer they showed, the little gameplay with that dumb grunt and his dumb face. No, not grunt, brute. And his dumb face. Craig, I think they called him.
Yeah.
Great meme. I love it. But everyone's going on about, oh, it looks bad. It looks like a game from 2006. And obviously, now looking back on it, we know it was an old demo. It was months old at the time. Things have changed since then, but they didn't have a new working prototype to show off. So we know it's going to look better, and we know it's probably going to handle better. But if there's one thing that's getting me through this pandemic, it's thinking about how at some point we're going to get Halo again. It's all I want, man.
I feel you, and I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Halo. I'm not nearly as big a fan of Halo as Salsa is, but I do enjoy a good Halo game. I really enjoyed Halo Reach, and I really enjoyed Halo 3. And obviously, I've played Halo 1, most of 2, but I saw the trailer for Halo Infinite, and I really wasn't even focused on the concept of of like the graphics, because in my opinion, I'm not a smooth brain, zero wrinkled, just absolute fucking mongrel. I don't even know what to say. And I understand that this is a work in progress. So for everybody, because I hate when people do that. They act like the trailer that they just released, a year before it's released, is the final end all be all to how the game's going to be, and they can't put more than two brain cells together to be like, maybe they're still working on it. Maybe this is just an early prototype.
And not just that, but the fact that they have this harebrained assumption that the make or break point for a game is the graphics. That if it doesn't look like a 4K Modern Warfare polished piece of shit, that it's not going to be a good game. To which I'm just going to counter Terraria, Minecraft, literally any Nintendo game.
I was going to say, and that even kind of goes to my point that there are games that I can go back and play that are, lower quality, but in my opinion, stand the test of time better than games that are released these days. Like, I would much rather boot up my N64, blow the dust off, and plug Super Mario 64 into that bitch than I would rather play Fallout 76. I would at least enjoy Super Mario 64, whereas Fallout 76 will legitimately give me brain cancer, and I'll be terminal before the time I'm done. Like, no joke.
The game itself just seeps radioactive waste.
Exactly.
Which is fitting for a game called Fallout. But some games just, despite how old they get, despite how they look, they maintain a sense of enjoyment, like Tetris. Tetris is literally just a game about stacking blocks. Yet here we are in 2020, and people are still playing the absolute hell out of the game.
No, absolutely. I mean, they even recently made a new app for Tetris. Just, fun fact for anybody out there who wants to go play some Tetris. And actually, I turned, Salsa. I showed him the new app, and he even, is enjoying it. Obviously, Tetris fell victim to the pay to play era of mobile games. So, the new game is free to play. So if anybody's interested in that, go ahead. We're not sponsored by Tetris, but if Tetris wants to sponsor us, go for it.
I don't know if I want Tetris to sponsor us because I have feelings about what they've done that I don't think will get us a sponsorship.
Probably not, but oh well.
Okay.
I mean, it's better than the 100 million videos I see a day of. Now a word from our sponsors, Raid Shadow Legends.
I'm telling you, there's this one guy who does the best Raid Shadow Legends pitches. I think his name is Internet Historian. You ever seen that guy?
I think you showed him to me before.
Every time he gets sponsored, it's NordVPN or it's Raid Shadow Legends, and they're amazing. The dude has turned advertisement into enjoyment.
They're like, oh man, I'm really looking forward to his pitch on Raid Shadow Legends this week.
I genuinely do, but it's not this week. He posts like once every 10 years, basically.
So JonTron.
Yeah.
Goes like 6 months.
Less controversial.
Yeah, I was gonna say. But enough of that. I guess the next thing we were going to talk about, and we even kind of talked about this a little bit, was the next gen consoles, the PS5, and then it's called the X series, right?
Yeah, the Xbox X series, which is kind of misleading because you have the Xbox One, the Xbox One S, the One X, and now you have the Xbox X series.
So there's probably going to be at least 100,000 kids on Christmas Day, 2020. They've been through an entire pandemic, and they're going to get the Xbox One X rather than the X series that they wanted.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the One X is a great console. And me personally, It beat out PS4, hands down. But they're not even thinking at this point. They're just trying to come up with new ways to repackage the letter X.
Right. I mean, and they are, because yeah, the Xbox, the Xbox 360, the Xbox One, and then everything else. And obviously, PlayStation's been kind of they've always stayed true to its roots. The PlayStation 1, the PlayStation 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. So at least there's some consistency with them.
See, they learned from their mistake. They put out the PS Vita and realized, well, shit, that's not going to work.
I mean, the PSP was pretty solid, but the PS Vita, I don't know, man. I never cared for the Vita.
I cannot name a single person I know personally who even has seen a PS Vita in person.
They're essentially like, it's like a golden piece of crap. You kind of want to see it, but you're also like, this really stinks. So like, I want to see it, but I really don't.
It's like the PSP was their, or Sony's take on the portable handheld like DS and the 3DS.
Right.
The PS Vita, though, was like their early attempt at the Nintendo Switch. They beat out Nintendo in that sense, but they were too early. There was no market for it.
And then, I mean, it's the same thing. Like, they did their take like on VR, not really VR, but they had what the hell was it, PlayStation Move or something?
Oh yeah, with the little baubles on the end of the controllers.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
that was like their version of the Wii.
But there was already a Wii. But
Yeah.
they claimed that there was more integratability into it, and it was supposed to be better somehow.
I can literally remember one game that ever used those controllers, and it was like Killzone or something.
Right, and I mean it just kind of dissipated, which but kind of to go back to the original point, with the new game consoles that are coming out, I mean, the worst part for me is that typically when they release new consoles, any games that they release for the new consoles are typically going to be compatible with the old consoles still. For instance, I can't remember what game it was, but when the Xbox One came out, there was a game that I wanted, and I couldn't get the Xbox One quite yet, but there was a game that I wanted, and it was supposed to be a launch title for Xbox One, and then they said, there will be a release for Xbox 360 eventually. So, and something that I've seen so far is that I've not yet seen a new game for the new consoles that's going to be compatible with the old consoles.
Well, see, that's interesting because Halo said Infinite will be backwards compatible. At least that's what I remember reading.
The one that I saw, because obviously I've not seen every single game that they've said that they're going to release. But for instance, the Resident Evil 8 game, it's only going to be a next-gen console game.
Which I'm all for, because Resident Evil 8 is a little more of a niche market. It's going to be aimed at horror game fanatics. Whereas Halo, that's FPS. There's going to be people on old and next gen who want to play that.
Right, but I guess it's more of a personal complaint that I basically will have to buy, because I just bought a PlayStation 4. And so far, I've not seen anything outside of Resident Evil 8 that people are saying like, oh, these games are only going to be for PlayStation 5. Like, I was worried that, the timing of Last of Us 2, obviously it came out this year, but I was worried that they were going to push it until the next gen console release and make it a console exclusive for the PS5, but they didn't, thankfully. But what I'm mostly concerned of is, like, obviously I have a PlayStation 4. I'm not going to buy a PlayStation 5, but I've had an Xbox One for a few years now, so I will probably end up upgrading to an X series. But it literally looks like a fucking modem, like a dial-up modem. Like,
well, I mean, either way, you get the Xbox X series, it looks like a mini fridge. You get the PlayStation 5, it looks like a modem. And then there's the whole Nintendo Switch thing, Because I remember reading that they have a patent for 2 new versions of the Switch. And they put one out, the Switch Lite. And then allegedly, according to rumor, there was supposed to be a Nintendo Switch Pro. Which...
What makes it Pro?
Well, from what I read, it would have special, like a new version of the Joy-Cons, which is good because, the old ones were crap. But it was also supposed to have like an upgraded CPU, memory, most importantly, battery life. They said it would be able to run twice as long as the current Switch. But the trade-off being that it's bigger, it's bulkier. It's not going to look as sleek and stylish.
Right. Well, and honestly, what I was going to say is that, except for the sleek and stylish part, because I remember when they had the Xbox 360, they eventually released the Xbox 360 Elite. And the Elite was sleeker, had similar specs. I think the one thing that the Elite, obviously, I guess it depended on which version you got, but the like a standard Xbox 360 had like 120 gigabyte hard drive. But then the Elite came up, like standard was like 32 or maybe 16, I think.
Are you talking about... Because I remember the original 360 had a push button start.
Yeah.
But are you talking about the one that had the touch sensor start?
Yeah, that was the Elite, wasn't it?
No, that was the Slim. The Elites looked just like the 360, but was black, I believe.
Yeah, I was like, 'cause I remember you had the Elite at some point, and I had the original Xbox.
Well, yeah, I had the Elite. You got the original. Then my Elite broke down, so eventually I got a Slim.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about the Slim is the starting gigabytes was 4.
Which obviously we kind of even touched on it. The games back then were smaller.
Oh yeah, that told you like 10 games.
Right, but even then, like as far as consoles went, like that was a small amount of storage for what was considered a next gen console at that time. Which, I mean, this is obviously a much larger conversation, but it's just odd.
I don't know if I would say it was next gen so much as it was same gen, but a sub gen in a way. Like it was still a 360, still played 360 games, just it was like the Xbox One S. Still an Xbox One, but it's their idea of how to upgrade it.
Right.
Which, not much of an upgrade.
No, I agree. But and with the X series as well, obviously everybody kind of makes fun of the design. So I honestly would guarantee that at some point we'll see them. It probably won't look the way it looks now when they go to release it. Same thing with the PlayStation.
See, I've always had this idea that I would almost prefer that consoles just look like ordinary electronic devices. Just a little box with a disc tray.
No, I agree.
Because, I mean, they look so unique that if someone breaks in your house, they're automatically going to know what to look for. They're going to be like, aight, there's an Xbox One, there's a PlayStation 4, snatch them up, sell them for quick money.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, I don't think that the console designers at Microsoft are really concerned with us lowly peons and our ability to potentially avoid home invaders.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely paranoid out of my mind, but yeah, they have no idea.
I mean, you essentially live in the equivalent of the U.S. Gulag, so I mean, it's a little bit different for you.
Listen, just because I can hear gunshots 24/7 doesn't mean... Okay, it does mean I basically live in the Gulag. Irrelevant.
You're like irrelevant. I guess one last thing we want to kind of talk about with those new consoles is, do we think that they're going to be delayed? I personally think that with all the hype that the memes have given the new consoles, I have a feeling that they're not going to delay them. Obviously, with the holiday seasons, and this is more of a I guess an overall view of our current world, with COVID and everything else. Like, how is Black Friday going to be? Because obviously, both Salsa and I have both been Black Friday shopping. Okay, much like 90% of the United States. So Salsa and I have both been Black Friday shopping, and we have both had the experience of literally being, nut to butt with, a couple thousand people in a Walmart being assaulted over the TV or, whatever the hell else that we're trying to get. So I obviously have questions about how Black Friday is going to work, generally speaking. But do you think that they'll have a holiday release or any kind of release by the end of 2020 for these consoles?
It's tough because while normally, yes, it's good to release at the holidays, just in time for Black Friday, but also because every kid's going to want the new console. However,
Right.
we are living in very extraordinary times. We have COVID-19. We have historic levels of unemployment, as well as a constant struggle for people to maintain some level of wealth. Like right now, there are tons of people in the US who are just dying, waiting for another round of stimulus checks. And they're not going to get them, most likely, because, let's be real, the government's incompetent.
And if they do get them, I mean, they're not going to I mean, this is obviously more of a political conversation, which, screw it. I mean, it's our podcast, but they're not
Yeah.
reconvening until September, if I remember correctly.
Can you even imagine these people who are in charge of working for the public? They're public servants, and they say, "Oh yeah, no, we're off until September," in the middle of a global catastrophe.
The audacity.
The audacity of this bitch.
I mean, even further than that, like you said, I mean, and this is kind of to get back to the conversation about,
Yeah.
the gaming. With the current level of unemployment, with the current level of, less than livable wages, can Sony and Microsoft really confidently, I was seeing like a $400-500 fucking price tag on these next gen consoles. It was like $399, wasn't it, or something like that?
No, it's going to be almost $500. No
Yeah.
one's going to be able to afford it if things keep up the way they are.
And here's the thing too, and I mean, I guess this is what it is, but especially during global catastrophe, for people who don't know, I'm a marketing major, but I also, when I was in college, I also did studies on, basically there's a word for it that I can't remember, but basically I did a study on the amount of money that something costs in its relation to essentially how a generation can afford that. And based on our current standings as an economy, I have no clue how anybody is going to be able to afford a $499 piece of hardware to play video games. I mean, they would be better off literally refurbishing a couple million Xbox Ones and just selling those instead. So I see a potential issue with the market overall. I don't see them being able to pull a price tag of $499 on these consoles. I mean, and don't get me started on the fact that the cost of these consoles have inflated 1,000% over the last 2 decades. But in addition to that, during the global health crisis, which God forbid, these companies take that into consideration when they're trying to market products to the middle class.
I mean, that's just, how do I put it? No one's going to be able to afford it, but people are going to find ways to. They're going to sell their old stuff. They're going to take out loans. They're going to literally go without food just to buy them. Because
that also opens up a conversation about, people's, toxic consumerism, how they'd rather not eat but have the next new thing.
And it's tough because sometimes we look at it like it's toxic consumerism. It's bad. No one should be this much of a consumer. But at the same time, if it weren't for little things like the entertainment we get from TV, video games, the next big device, I don't think a lot of people would put up with, the modern work environments if they didn't have those to alleviate the stress and anxiety caused by those things.
Right. And I mean, that's also another thing to kind of look at too, is that people are willing to, I mean, they were willing to spend $300-400, it was like $300 for the Xbox One at release, wasn't it?
Something like that. It was a little high.
Yeah, but the fact that these companies are gonna, they're gonna send out a console at almost $500,000 as a starting price for like the most basic, not to mention games. And if they do like a console game bundle, it's probably going to be more expensive. If you want more than just mediocre memory and storage, you're going to have to do that too. And honestly, I this is the only time you ever hear me say anything good about GameStop. But typically, GameStop will offer an incentive to trade in your old gen console to get the next gen console. So,
I mean, I agree. I don't think it's a good incentive usually, but it's better than nothing.
It's typically like somewhere between $100 and $200. I mean, they will never broach that $200 mark on anything you give them, much less the $100 mark. But at least you're getting some value from that old console, which it is what it is. They'll take it, they'll refurbish it, and they'll do a turnaround sale for $250 on an Xbox One, and I'll get maybe $100 out of it. But at least I won't have to pay $500 to get the new console, which just makes me want to cry thinking about the fact that I'm going to have to at some point dish out as much money as it is to pay for my car monthly to buy a console. Which, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'll get plenty of utilization out of it, but that is just an insane concept that we have in a capitalistic society.
I mean, it's as simple as the people making the products know will do it, hence why they get away with it.
I mean, it's like a crack dealer, like selling crack to people. He knows it's bad. I mean, everybody knows crack's bad, but he makes money making crack, so why not?
It's a source of income. Why would he not sell crack?
Right. But
let's not get into the ethics of selling crack. You know my feelings on that.
Right. But I guess on that note, I guess that's where we can stop it for now. But first and foremost, it's been awesome getting to chat with you, Salsa. And obviously, for people who don't know, we're going to try and do the Ctrl Over C gaming podcast once a week, and we're going to try and make the time slot on Wednesdays. So to get you over your hump day blues, always check into Ctrl Over C. Obviously, I think that's a boomer thing, isn't it? Hump day.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard many Zoomers talking about hump day.
But oh well. But Salsa, any parting thoughts for our friends and our fellow geeks out there?
None in particular. I mean, I will say we're really hoping we at least have something to talk about, because let's just say gaming news is a little rare now that 170,000 people have died to a horrendous disease.
So hopefully the next time we talk, maybe we'll have some more stuff to talk about. If not, we'll just talk about the ethics in selling a console for $500 during your global health crisis.
Yeah, I was gonna say this gaming podcast really quickly delved into why communism good, and I want to make it clear: I am not saying communism good. I do not want to get canceled on Twitter.
Seriously though, I don't even start on cancel culture. That's a whole other thing too. But all right. So like we said, guys, thank you so much for tuning in with us. Like, share, subscribe. I will link Salsa's Twitter in the bio. He does a lot of just wacky stuff on Twitter. Go follow him.
I'm really gonna have to keep my rants down to a minimum now that people are gonna be keeping an eye on me, huh?
I do whatever you want, dude. I do not care. But just make sure you said my views do not reflect that of Geek-Stew. No, I'm kidding. But go check him out. Go check out Geek-Stew on Twitter and on Facebook. And of course, keep subscribing. We're a new channel, but we are making great things. We have some videos coming up. I know that I personally made a video for Friday talking a little bit about zombie movies and the culture around them. So, definitely give that a look. And, Salsa will have some other projects, I'm sure, in the future outside of his podcast. So this will be fun.
You are very hopeful about my prospects. Meanwhile, I'm over here just playing Tetris because I thought we would have been done by now.
Fair enough. All right, guys, we're going to check out of here. You guys have fun. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep on growing.
Adios, muchachos.